Nigeria's central bank has put a lot of resources into its developmental functions to boost the economy of Africa's most populous nation. These interventions are targeted at several sectors of the economy, with funds and programs aimed at enhancing specific aspects of Nigeria's economy. But have they worked? Totaling about 37 in number, these interventions range from the Anchor Borrowers Program, the Creative Financing Initiatives, solar energy interventions, family house ownership schemes, and the interventions to cushion the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on the economy, firms, and individuals. Today, our focus is on the Central Bank of Nigeria's economic interventions. I'm Tolulokwe Adeleru Balogun. Welcome. This is Business Edge. Joining me is Mukhtar Mohammed, financial analyst and the CEO of Astra Dynamic Solutions. He joins me via the phone lines. Mukhtar, thank you once again for being with us on Business Edge.
My pleasure, always, Tolu.
All right, so let's start with this. Let's look at the regulatory functions of the CBN. So the CBN Act of 2007 of the Federal Republic of Nigeria charges the bank with the overall control and administration of the monetary and financial sector policies of the federal government. This includes ensuring monetary and price stability, issuing legal tender currency in Nigeria, maintaining external reserves to safeguard the international value of the naira, promoting a sound financial system in the country, and acting as banker, as well as providing economic and financial advice to the federal government of Nigeria. Looking at the interventions that the CBN has taken, do you think these interventions fall under the mandates and responsibilities of the Central Bank of Nigeria?
I've already answered that question already by reading the mandate of the CBN, and if I get it correctly, by that mandate, there's no place in that mandate that the CBN will directly intervene in any sector of Nigeria's economy. Their own was to provide monetary policy, and in terms of monetary policy, we're talking about currency stability, we're talking about monetary policy rates, we're talking about regulating our financial sector. There's nowhere that CBN was actually asked to intervene directly in any sector of Nigerian economy. Even if they have to intervene, they have to be an intermediary, which has to be the bank, the normal conventional bank. That was what was done before when you had the borrowing scheme that were initiated that farmers were supposed to be given a single-digit interest rate. You have to go through the commercial bank. Until recently, they came with the anchor borrowing scheme that CBN said, look, we are going to be borrowing directly. That's not their responsibility. So they are already going into a sector that does not, they are not supposed to go in there.
Why do you think we're finding the CBN intervening in areas that you say are not its responsibilities? It's to everyone's benefit to have an economy that is doing well. If there's need for intervention, funding, support, it's to everyone's benefit that that support is given. Does it matter that it might be coming from the CBN and, as you say, may not fall under their mandate? Does that matter?
It matters a lot when we're talking about corporate governance. So corporate governance is a big thing to play in any industry. So we need to know corporate governance, because if you don't have the framework or the manpower to begin to get back some of these loans that have been given to farmers, or is it the trader money scheme and all that? How many of those money have been recovered by CBN? How many people will come out and pay those money? And most Nigerians save money from CBN, like federal government, like yes. So, two, the other thing that made CBN to do that could be also their own fault, because they couldn't implement corporate governance in the financial sector. Because the reason why they say they are doing direct intervention, it seems to say that the banks were not able to do what they want them to do, especially in the agricultural sector, where at the point, once you have an agricultural a farm, you come to the banks, they go check your farm, they looked at it, then they will give you a fund, capital to run that business. And also in doing that, they'll give it at a single-digit rate. And what happened was, because of the strenuous measure that was put in place by CBN, some of this money still remains in the bank without them being given to farmers. And That has nothing to do with the farmer. That has nothing to do with the bank. That even has nothing to do with the CBN. It has everything to do with the land tenure system that we've been operating in Nigeria that has not been updated since the colonial regime. So a farmer cannot even use his land as a collateral to get loan. So sometimes we don't get the result because the foundational issues that have to do with administration have not been addressed. So it becomes a challenge.
It's interesting. We will talk about the Anchor Borrowers Program as well as the loan repayment situation. But let's look at one of the interventions for Nigeria's COVID response. So the CBN dispersed about 253 billion naira to some 548,345 beneficiaries, comprising over 470,000 households and more than 77,000 small and medium enterprises in Nigeria. Now, let's put this against how many SMEs are in the country. According to the Sweden National Survey of 2017, the last survey in this regard, there are around 41.5 million SMEs in Nigeria. And when the CBN says they were able to get some form of intervention to just over 77,000 out of around 41.5 million, how would you rate this intervention then?
It's more or less as not intervening at all. If you look at it in terms of the statistic, that means they even give less than 10% of the SMEs in Nigeria. And if you look at economic theory, then if you look at theory that has to do with productivity, it said 20% of your results, 80% of results comes from 20% of companies. So if we are not even able to give 20% of the SMEs, how are we going to be able to even touch 80% of them? So in economic terms, when you want to borrow, you look at the top 20% that are really having impact in the SME space. Those are the people that you are going to give those loans. And then in turn will now affect about 80% of that space. So once you have an economy where about 80% of those SMEs have been touched, then you are doing well. So unfortunately, we don't have those statistics. Even these SMEs that we are talking about that have been given an intervention, we don't even know how far they perform. Because in the developed nation, what we saw the government doing during the COVID-19 response was for them to directly intervene. And what they did, they were not directly intervening only in giving them capital. They were looking at their manpower, the number of employers. How many these SMEs employing? They said, okay, fine. We don't want you to send them to the labor market. We don't want you to have more unemployment. We are going to take, as an institution, as a government, we are going to take 4 of them so that you can pay for 2 of them. So that at that stage, we know that we are not having more unemployed people in the economy. That's how most developed nations intervened during the COVID-19 era. But Nigerians' challenge is that we throw money at the problem without doing the fundamental things that we need to do to begin to address it, so that when we put in money into those areas, we'll see the desired results.
Noted. Now, when we stay with the bank's response to the pandemic in Nigeria, the CBN also approved a 1-year extension of moratorium on principal repayments for its intervention facilities, in addition to also granting regulatory forbearance to banks to restructure loans given to sectors that were severely affected by the pandemic. So if you had a repayment sometimes scheduled within the time of the pandemic and afterwards, you were given some more time. How successful, how useful is this in the context of the loans and the interventions that the CBN has been doing?
I can tell you with good authority that the bank did not implement that in all of their debtors. Because I still know people that the banks are still harassing them. They're not giving them any memorandum to stay for some time before paying the 1 year that CBN said they should. So that's what we talk about, regulators not doing their work. So what we see, the people that are enjoying this like this are those that maybe the ones that are owing the bank billions of naira, not the small SME that is owing the bank 500,000 or 1 million. They refuse to give them that holiday. So it's not making any impact as far as I'm concerned. Because the smaller business that are borrowing the 1 million, the 2 million, the 5 million, the 10 million, we're not giving those brackets. So what we saw is that the bigger business that are borrowing the billions are the ones that are enjoying that. So what have we succeeded in doing? We succeeded in keeping back the bigger company and killing the smaller companies. So that's a challenge.
Follow up on that, because I find it interesting that you're saying the banks are still harassing people and they're not giving the moratorium that the CBN has said they should. Is there no accountability? Is there no reporting structure that allows customers of the banks to be able to report what should be a regulatory infraction to the regulator of this industry, of this sector?
So I just told you about regulators not doing their work. See, the only time we get the Nigerian regulatory system, the CBN, acting, it is when it involves government funds. We don't see them respond when it becomes a private complaint. Because when it involves government fund, or unless it involves a government official, then you see, because the government official know one or two people in the CBN and he calls them and he brings the bank to order.
It's unfortunate. Let's pause here. So 300 billion naira. That's the number I want you to hold on to. I'll explain what it means when we come back. 300 billion naira. And we'll also get into the very famous, or maybe some would say infamous, Anchor Borrows program of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Do stay with us. We are talking about the Central Bank of Nigeria's economic intervention programs in the country. My guest, Mukhtar Mohammed, is still with me, looking at the economic interventions of the CBN. We've gone through if it is actually the mandate and responsibility of the CBN to be intervening in these sectors. The CBN has about 37 interventions that range from the Anchor Borrowers Program, the creative financing innovations. You also have solar energy interventions as well, family ownership scheme, interventions to help cushion the effects of COVID-19 on the economy, firms and individuals. But Mukhtar is saying that, is this really the responsibility of the CBN, looking at what their mandate is? If you missed that, let me quickly run through what the mandate of the CBN is. Now, that includes ensuring monetary and price stability, issuing legal tender currency in the country, maintaining external reserves to safeguard the international value of the said naira, promoting a sound financial system in Nigeria, and acting as a banker and providing economic and financial advice to the federal government. Does it mean that because there's nothing about interventions that the CBN does not have the power to be in this space doing what they're doing? That's a question that we would like Mukhtar to be able to handle as soon as we get in touch with him once again. Then we've also looked at their COVID response, in which about 253 billion naira was dispersed to over 548,000 beneficiaries. That was over 470,000 households and more than 77,000 small and medium enterprises in the country. But according to that SMEDEN National Survey of 2017, there are more than 41.5 million SMEs in Nigeria. So you're giving access and financing to just over 77,000 out of 41.5 million. That literally does sound like a drop in the bucket. And we continue to look at that in terms of the issuance of a 1-year extra moratorium on the principal repayments of loans. But Mukhtar shared some experiences, saying he knows those who have had banks continue to hound them. Some banks in this instance, are not giving the moratorium on the repayment of the loans, and they're actually following up with people demanding that the repayments be made, which is against what the regulator, that is the CBN, is asking them to do. Hopefully we have Mukhtar back. Mukhtar, are you back with me now? All right, so unfortunately not able to get him just as of yet, but we wanted to get into what is possibly the most famous of the interventions that the Central Bank of Nigeria has been getting into, and that is the Anchor Borrowers Program. Here are a few numbers for you regarding that program. Now, the CBN said the intervention facilities reached over 3 million. The number is 3,107,949 smallholder farmers who are cultivating about 3.8 million hectares of land, while about 29,026 beneficiaries have accessed over 111.7 billion naira under the Agribusiness Small and Medium Enterprises Investment Scheme. How would we rate the success of that? And that scheme has received kudos. It has also received a lot of knocks. There are complaints as to who the farmers are that have received it, Earlier on, you heard Mukhtar talk about the fact that many farmers are not able to use their land as collateral because of the land tenure system that Nigeria operates. There's also the issues with getting the farmers to repay the loans. The conversation about repayment of loans is a very big one here in Nigeria, not just for the CBN, but also for the banks and also for even the new fintechs that are coming into the space. One of the issues we've seen is that the CBN has actually tried to do an incentive. What they've told the farmers is that for every farmer with a good repayment record, they would be eligible to get a solar home system that would provide electricity to power their essential home appliances. The CBN is expected to develop a repayments framework that would allow farmers to use their farm produce as repayment for the electricity consumed by the beneficiaries of this scheme. Is that not enough incentive? Is that not a good incentive for farmers to want to repay their loans? But the trouble remains with getting not just farmers, but many Nigerians to repay loans taken from banks, the financial technology companies that are springing up, as well as the CBN. And the question also remains, how do we analyze, how do we gauge the success of these interventions from the CBN? How successful are they? The numbers are coming from the CBN itself. There's really no independent audit that allows us to know if these households are being reached, if the money that they say is getting to them is actually getting to them, and if they are truly working on the repayments as much as possible. And if this is not what we expect of the CBN, as Mukhtar was saying, then what exactly is it that we expect of the Central Bank of Nigeria? Additionally, I did want to touch base with Mukhtar on the developments from the CBN announcing that they would be launching a digital currency. So, of course, the CBN has said they will be launching a digital currency, which means money, naira, kobo, whatever it is, would be on your phone rather than in your hand. The Central Bank of Nigeria is trying to hit an 80% financial inclusion mark before the end of 2021. They say we're about 60% right now, and they believe that with a digital currency that's pegged to the naira that's coming from the central bank, it would help increase Nigeria's financial inclusion drive. A lot to take home and a lot to think about with what the Central Bank of Nigeria is doing. I'm going to take a quick time out. So when we come back, we'll have NC4 to watch. And as we wrap things up on today's Business Edge, let's give you a few stories we are keeping our eyes on. We start with an Australian development, and here we go when we go down under. Now, the African Development Bank has launched a 600 million Australian dollar 5.5-year kangaroo bond, marking its return to the Australian dollar bond market. A kangaroo bond is a foreign bond issued in the Australian markets by non-Australian firms and is denominated in Australian currency. It is the institution's first benchmark kangaroo since early 2018 and its first in the mid-curve since 2015. Egypt's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Samah Shakri, has met with Qatar's Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani. Now, both ministers said they were satisfied with the positive developments in the Egyptian-Qatari relations following the signing of the Al Ula statement earlier this year. Motorists in Kenya, particularly those using petrol-powered cars, will be paying more before the end of June. The maximum pump price for a litre of Kenya's super petrol has increased by 0.77 Kenyan shillings per litre, while that of a litre of diesel and kerosene remains unchanged. And finally, South African consumer debt surged to 1.9 trillion rand, with 20.4 billion rand in value defaulted for the first time. This was recorded between January to March this year, according to Experian South Africa's Consumer Default Index. Now, the Experian Africa Chief Decision Analytics Officer Jaco van Jasveld said that this deterioration is primarily due to the increase in business volumes during the latter parts of 2020, when strict lockdown rules were relaxed at the end of the second COVID wave. And that's it on this edition of Business Edge. As always, thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget that you can follow us on social media at News Central TV and head to our YouTube channel if you've missed any of our conversations. And of course, go to our website. We are live on Star Times Channel 274, Avo TV Channel 23. Until next time, I'm Tolulokwe Adeleru Balogun.